Scorpio, listen to me carefully, because if your heart has been restless, if your spirit has been whispering, "I can't stay here anymore," this is not your imagination, and it is not drama. This is that sacred moment in your life when heaven leans in closer, when God begins to rearrange the rooms of your world so that what is meant for you can finally reach you. You did not click on this message by accident. Out of millions of people and endless videos, you were pulled here to this exact moment in time because there is a very specific warning and a very specific reassurance your soul needs to hear. It is time to walk away, and you are not losing everything. You are being quietly protected from what your eyes cannot yet see. Your future is not falling apart. It's being guarded. As you listen, let your spirit be honest with you. You already know which situation, which place, which relationship, which cycle this message is pointing at. You felt the weight, the heaviness, the way your peace has been leaking out of you day by day. This is not just stress. This is a spiritual alarm. Somewhere in your life right now, Scorpio, there is an environment that has expired for your soul. Maybe it still looks fine on the surface. Maybe it even looks blessed from the outside. Stable job, long-term connection, familiar routine, the same streets, the same rooms, the same faces. But behind the outer picture, something in the atmosphere has shifted. You walk into that space and your chest tightens. You talk to that person, and when the call ends, you feel drained instead of nourished. You finish your day and realize you've been moving on autopilot, half alive. Your spirit dimmed down to fit inside a life that no longer matches the person you are becoming. That's not random. That's not you being ungrateful. That's what it feels like when the grace for a season has lifted, when God starts gently closing a chapter that you kept trying to reread. The discomfort is not punishment. It is guidance. It is a holy nudge saying, "My beloved, you cannot stay here and still receive what I have prepared next." Because you, Scorpio, were never designed for small stories and half-truths. You are the sign of alchemy, rebirth, deep spiritual perception. You feel what others only think about. You sense the storm before it hits, the shift before it's visible. Inside you lives a navigator that has been trying to get your attention for a long time, through uneasy sleep, through strange tension, through repeated signs and patterns. You've noticed certain numbers showing up, certain phrases repeating, certain people revealing their true colors in ways you can't ignore anymore. There have been moments, quiet ones, when something in you whispered, "If I don't leave now, I'm going to lose myself." That is your soul speaking to you. And when your soul cries out like that, it is because God has already seen the end of that road, has already walked ahead of you in time, and knows that staying where you are would cost you far more than the fear of walking away. Think about all the times you tried to convince yourself to stay. You told yourself, "It's not that bad, other people have it worse, I should be grateful, I can fix this, I can carry it." You kept making yourself smaller so the space wouldn't feel so tight. You laughed at jokes that pierced you. You said it's fine when your heart was breaking. You swallowed your intuition because you didn't want to disturb the peace, even though your peace had already been disturbed. Yet no matter how hard you tried to squeeze yourself into that version of life, there remained a subtle ache, a quiet grief you couldn't name. That ache is what happens when your soul outgrows its cage. And here is the truth many people do not want to face. Some cages are made of comfort, of routine, of predictability, of, "At least I know how this works." But comfort that requires you to betray yourself is not safety, it is slow spiritual erosion. God loves you too much to let you rot politely in a place that cannot hold the fullness of who you are. So the signs keep escalating. First it's just a loss of enthusiasm, then it's emotional exhaustion, then it becomes conflict, betrayal, sudden changes, doors closing, opportunities drying up. Not because you're cursed, but because you are not meant to build your future there. When peace leaves a room, alignment has already shifted. You start noticing little fractures, promises that are never kept, words that sound supportive but energy that feels heavy, environments where your dreams are treated like jokes, your boundaries like inconveniences. Some of you have felt this at work, a boss or culture that wants your labor but not your growth. Some of you feel it in your friendships, surrounded by people who clap when you're broken, but get strangely silent when you start to heal. Others feel it in family patterns or relationships where control masquerades as love. Spiritually, it feels like you keep dimming your own light just to keep everything from exploding. But inside, something is refusing to go back to sleep. Scorpio, there comes a point where staying is actually more dangerous than leaving. Not always physically, but spiritually, emotionally, energetically. There is a cost to constantly ignoring your inner knowing. Every time you silence yourself, your self-trust cracks. Every time you stay in rooms where your spirit is shrinking, your future becomes a little more distant. This is why God is pressing on your heart right now. Not to scare you, but to save you from wasting years on what cannot go with you into your next chapter. Sometimes the answer to your prayer for a better life is not more effort where you are. It's the courage to walk away from what keeps suffocating your becoming. The shift you're craving will not come from rearranging the furniture in the same burning house. It comes from stepping outside, even if your legs are shaking, trusting that there is a new place being prepared for you, even if you can't see it yet. Of course, the mind fights this. Your logic makes long lists. I can't leave yet. I need a perfect plan. I need guarantees. I don't want to disappoint anyone. What if I regret it? What if I fail? The ego loves familiar pain more than unfamiliar freedom. It will tell you that the misery you know is safer than the possibility you don't. But your spirit knows better. Your spirit is already standing in the doorway of the next season, calling you forward. This is where faith becomes more than a word. Walking away doesn't always mean dramatic scenes or sudden explosions. Sometimes it's quiet, steady decisions. Updating a resume, saving money, saying no to invitations that drain you, allowing certain conversations to end, creating emotional space, making a plan in secret with God step by step. Your exit doesn't have to be reckless to be powerful. It only has to be honest. Heaven does not require perfection from you. It asks for willingness. Once you decide, I will no longer live in a way that betrays my soul, everything in the unseen begins to rearrange itself around that choice. And as you walk out, Scorpio, you are not walking into emptiness. You are walking into protection. There are people you were never meant to hear certain conversations from. There are battles you were never meant to fight. There are storms that were never meant to hit you directly. Only your old environment kept you standing in their path. When God pulls you out of a place, it is often because something is brewing there that would have damaged you more deeply than you realize. You may not see it clearly now. You may only feel the uneasiness, the weird behavior, the sudden conflicts. But months or years from now, you might look back and say, if I had stayed, that would have broken me. Your exit is not abandonment. It is preservation. It is God's hand on your shoulder, gently turning you away from a falling structure. Destiny sometimes looks like loss in the beginning. A closed door can feel like rejection, but more often it is redirection. You are not being discarded. You are being hidden until the right soil is ready for your roots. There is also something else happening beneath the surface. While you're leaving what is wrong for you, God is quietly aligning what is right for you. New connections that speak your language. Environments where your depth isn't too much, but exactly what's needed. Work that doesn't just use your gifts but honors them. Relationships where love isn't a competition or a cage, but a space where both souls can breathe. You are not meant to live the rest of your life explaining your heart to people who refuse to listen. You are not meant to apologize for your sensitivity, your discernment, your need for honesty. The world has rooms you haven't walked into yet, tables you haven't sat at, opportunities that require exactly the version of you that is trying to emerge now. But that version cannot fully arrive while you keep anchoring yourself to what constantly pulls you backwards. Think of this as a spiritual migration, from scarcity into sufficiency, from survival into purpose, from constantly proving your worth into simply living it. Of course, this path is not without grief. Walking away doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean the memories disappear. It doesn't mean the good moments weren't real. What it means is that you choose truth over illusion. It means you accept that some chapters can be beautiful and still not be your final destination. You're allowed to mourn what you're leaving behind, while still trusting that the future is safer in God's hands than in your attempts to control or fix everything. There will be nights when you question yourself, when the silence feels loud, when you miss the familiar noise of the old life. On those nights, remind yourself, I did not walk away from love, I walked away from what kept me from loving myself. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not cruel for choosing healing. Whatever tries to make you feel guilty for honoring your soul is benefiting from your self-betrayal. You don't owe anyone the version of you that had to split in half just to be tolerated. As you move into this next phase, protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Take time to rest, to reset, to talk honestly with God about your fears and hopes. Journal the signs you've been given. Notice the small confirmations. A sentence that lands at the right time, a door that unexpectedly opens, the calm that washes over you when you envision a life beyond this current chapter. Start speaking life over your future instead of rehearsing your past. Affirm quietly but firmly, I am safe to leave what harms me. I am guided to what heals me. I am worthy of environments that honor my soul. And as you do, understand this. Messages like this one are not contracts, not guarantees, not fixed prophecies carved in stone. They are mirrors, invitations, spiritual stories that reflect possibilities already stirring inside you. This narrative is a lens through which your own intuition can see itself more clearly. A kind of gentle thought experiment for your heart. If these words resonate, let them strengthen you. If some parts do not, let them drift past like clouds. No reading, no guide, no voice on a screen can replace your own wisdom, your own choices, your own direct relationship with the divine, who knows you better than any horoscope ever could. So, Scorpio, as you listen to the last echoes of this message, feel what is happening in your body right now. Is there a sense of relief at the idea of walking away? A loosening in your chest when you imagine yourself somewhere else, with someone else, or even alone, but finally at peace? That feeling matters. Your emotions are not the enemy. They are the compass. You do not have to decide everything tonight, but you cannot keep pretending your spirit is fine when it is clearly not. All of this is an invitation, not an order. A reminder, not a threat. You have the power to say no, to say not yet, to say I'm not ready, and you also have the power to say, I choose myself now. If this story has touched something ancient and tender inside you, treat it as a sacred hint rather than a commandment. Only you know the full story of your life. Only you can walk your path. Let this message sit with you, pray over it, weigh it against your own truth. If it aligns with the quiet voice you've been ignoring, then maybe it is time to honor that voice. And if you feel called to anchor this moment in the physical, you can whisper it, write it, or even type it into the space below. I am ready to walk away from what harms my peace, and I trust God with what comes next. Not as a superstition, but as a declaration to yourself that you are done negotiating with your own soul. Your future is not something fragile that can be stolen if you make one wrong move. It is a living, breathing conversation between your choices and divine grace. You are not behind. You are not doomed. You are standing on holy ground, on the edge of a chapter you cannot yet fully imagine. Walk gently, Walk honestly, but do not keep standing in a place that your spirit has already left. God is not just in the place you are leaving. God is also in the place you haven't reached yet, already preparing the people, the healing, the opportunities, and the peace that your next season will require. Walk away now, not in panic, but in faith, because what comes next is too precious to risk by staying where your light keeps being dimmed.